Hi everyone, I'm here today with Tracey Beard for another expert interview, and we're going to be chatting all about how to leverage your personality for marketing success. So Tracey Beard runs a business called Career Matters, and she is a career coach, mainly for teenagers moving into the workforce. But first of all, I'd just like Tracey to tell us a little bit about herself and what she does and how she came to be doing what you're doing currently.
Right, thanks Louise. So I'm a career expert and coach in the field of young adults and students moving into their careers and identifying their best path going forward in terms of maybe study options or career options. I'm based here in Christchurch in New Zealand, but I work with clients right across New Zealand. I've also got a product that's available internationally for students outside of New Zealand. But I'm really trying to change the way that students and their parents explore their career options. Basically, what the schools are doing is the same as when I was at school, and I was at school a wee while ago. And it's really trying to say this generation of young adults wants different things in the workforce than we do. They're more savvy around knowing themselves and wanting a purpose and driving towards making a difference in terms of what they do. So I'm trying to change the way that they explore their careers using psychometric profiles, personality questionnaires, one-on-one coaching with the student and the parents. So that's what I do differently, and really trying to support them going forward. And there's a big strong link in what I do in terms of their mental health. So when we find our purpose, when we find where we can do our best work, when we're doing things that make us get up out of bed in the morning, then our mental health is impacted positively. And so there's that link between that. It's not just to finding them a job, it's finding them a career where they can do great work, feel good about themselves, because when they succeed, we all succeed. And so that's my mission really, is trying to make that link between how important it is that they leave school with a clear purpose of what they're doing, because it inspires them to live better lives, and then we all succeed because of that.
I love that. That's so cool. I wish that was around when I was at school, definitely, because I feel like we didn't get that much direction at all.
No, we didn't. And every parent that I work with says that I wish I had met you when I was at school. And I thought, I wish I'd met myself, because I left high school and all I did was say, well, I wanted a degree and I wanted to leave home. And my parents didn't support any of those. And so I ended up running away and joining the military. And,
Really?
and I got those things fulfilled, but I didn't really think about the careers beyond that. And then I spent 15 years in the military trying to make it work, wondering why I wasn't excited by work. It was good, but it wasn't great. And I was thinking there was something wrong with me. What do I do? What do I do to make it better? How do I fix this? And then it wasn't until I left that career, went overseas and went into leadership development and psychometric profiles, that I realized that the people in the military weren't my people. And so it wasn't a fault of them or mine. It was just they weren't my people, and I wasn't doing work that really interested me, really drove me. And so once I got that sort of light bulb, it's like, oh my gosh, how could I use that to help other people? And then when I came back to New Zealand, I was doing some HR consulting. And then after the earthquakes, there was lots of young adults and students that I knew, they just lost their way. And so I started using this career questionnaire, personality profile that I knew, and I'd only learned it just thinking it would help my own boys. And I started using it for the young adults and students around here in Christchurch, and help them sort of get their head above the chaos of the day-to-day, wondering about the next earthquake, wondering how they were going to survive. And they started thinking a bit more longer term. How could I use my skills after the rebuild? How could I help others? How could I keep focused on my future instead of the chaos of the day-to-day? And I really did that just as a volunteer thing to help them. And it kind of took off from there. And each mother, the relief she got, she passed me to another mother, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so from there I just thought, oh gosh, this is really interesting, and I can see the need, because it's the same need I had to be helped back when I was a young adult and didn't have somebody to help me. And so I just carried on doing it from there, turned into a business, and 7 years later I'm still going.
I love that. And it kind of makes me think that right now, considering what's happening in the world, I mean, obviously your business seems to have sprung up out of the earthquakes, which, was a time when people were unsure of their next step. And I think a lot of people could probably use that similar support right now. So that's awesome that you're offering that service.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, it really is. Those times of uncertainty, we need those tools to say, okay, how can we focus on the future? How can we take that longer term perspective? How can we keep moving forward rather than just stagnating in the uncertainty of the moment? And young adults are very pragmatic about that. It's either really bad or it's really good, And so it's trying to say, okay, things might be a bit crappy, but what can you do that keeps you positive and helping others and moving forward, so that they realize that the world is a bit, grey, but it doesn't mean that it's not a bad world.
Yeah, and what can you do to move forward in the best way possible? Totally.
It's always about that.
Yeah. So you mentioned that feeling of something being wrong with me because you maybe are in the wrong career and you don't fit in or something like that. I think that kind of translates into marketing quite a lot. We get told to do the list of things, and there's no shortage of advice of what to do, but actually putting it into action is a different story. And I've noticed that with myself and with others that, while you may have the best intentions, sometimes it's just something stopping you from doing the next thing. And one thing that kind of springs to mind is maybe going live on Facebook or something like that. A lot of people have quite a big block around making that happen. We all know we should be doing it, but myself, for years I didn't do Facebook Lives because I felt like I was like too introverted, you know what I mean?
Yes, same. Yeah.
So I think like some aspects of marketing are better suited to different personalities as well. And we're going to talk about how to actually leverage that. So we're really going to dig into the personality side for those of you watching in this interview. So first of all, we're going to start off with asking Tracey, what is personality and why is it important to identify, your own personality and actually understand what it means for you?
So personality it's your specific, unique combination of characteristics that make you you. Okay, and I'm thinking when we're discussing personality, I'm talking about within the normal range. So I'm not talking about the extremes of personality, the narcissists, the psychopaths. There's no course for marketing to help them. I'm talking about people with a normal range of personality and saying these are your characteristics. And your personality reflects your preference for how you behave in certain situations, how you respond to certain situations. And there's a whole lot of facets to your personality. People might think, well, your personality is just, oh, she's nice, or sounds professional, or she's a bit aloof. It's more than that. There's a whole lot of facets to our personality, and that's reflected in the personality profiling that I do. But there's things like, how do you work in teams? What's your preference around that? What's your level of empathy? What's your problem-solving approach? What's your thinking style? What's your preference for leading? Lots and lots of aspects around that. And we all have a natural preference for how we react in each of those situations. And there's no right or wrong, good or bad, assuming you're in that normal range. But the important thing is when you know what your preference is, you can adapt your approach to the situation you're in, or you can learn strategies to say, okay, when I'm in this situation, I'm likely to behave like this because that's my natural preference, but it probably won't be that positive in this situation. So I need to push myself to adopt other strategies or just change my approach. If I stick with my natural style, it's not going to lead me to success. So it's really about adapting your approach to your situation. And it's important, when you know yourself well, then you can make life and business choices that are congruent with your personality.
Yeah.
Fitting in with who you are, not trying to be somebody you're not. That's emotionally draining, isn't it? So there's no one ideal personality, and especially when it comes to business. So you often hear that discussion, and in a couple of the talks that you've had, I noticed people have sort of said, oh, I need to be more like you, or I need to be more like this, or I need to be this. No, you need to be you and make it work for you. Because if you're trying to be somebody you're not, that's emotionally draining. And I did that for a while. That was my first career, trying to succeed in the military. And they weren't my people. So trying to be someone else I wasn't was just draining to me. And it didn't bring me passion or enjoyment. So when you step out of that and embrace who you are, that's when the joy is. That's where the excitement is. It really is about adapting, sticking with who you are and making it fit. So an example of that, those personalities, is that I know anecdotally, and I also know from personality profiles I've done, that one of my preferences is to not be very innovative. I'm not a risk taker. Okay, so now I know that I could spend, I could have spent the last 20 years of my working life beating myself up about this. Like, I need to be more innovative. I need to be more of a risk taker, blah, 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 but rather than say, okay, this is my preference. Okay, I can't change that because your personality is in ground, but how do I adapt that to certain situations? So when I'm thinking about my business and thinking about new things that I want to do, I realize that if I come up with a new idea or I see a new idea, I might freak out about it a little bit to start with, or I might go, oh, I can't do that, it's a bit risky. But rather than saying, okay, well, I won't because my gut's telling me it's a risk or it's too innovative, I'd say, okay, my preference is to keep in this little small bubble of risk or, tried and true tested solutions. If I know that I have to push myself, it might feel a bit uncomfortable, but if I get advice or do research or find whatever strategies to help me evaluate that innovative, maybe risky approach, then I'm more likely to say, okay, I've done all the work. I know it's going to fit my business. It still might feel a bit scary, but that's because of my natural preference. Doesn't mean I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, so I shared last night the quiz. For those of you that are watching, I can see in the comments actually that Sue's just written that she's an ambivert, which I found out I was too, and to be honest, that's not really a term that I'd heard of before. But I always felt like I was at that. I think we started this conversation actually with you, Tracey, because you were commenting on my comments in my interview with Natalie about how I felt like I was an extroverted introvert, and you said there was no such thing. But I've always felt like I was kind of more in the middle, but definitely a little bit on the introverted side. But it was interesting doing that quiz. I mean, there's so many personality quizzes that I've done over the years, and then some people have kind of remodeled it into their own system.
Yes.
Like for example, Gretchen Rubin's The Four Tendencies. So that's kind of still based. That's personality.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is introversion and extroversion? And like, what is that kind of ambivert in the middle? Because I noticed a lot of people that were commenting on this post last night got the ambivert one.
Yes, it was surprising because it typically is a smaller portion of the population that gets that. And that was a very simple test. It's quite rudimentary in that it was only was one question on the other. And so I do have a one that's a bit more complex, more questions around it. And I could send a link to that so that if you think you're an ambivert or you felt like you liked both the questions equally, this next question might give you a bit more depth and detail around whether you are really an ambivert or maybe just on the edges of introvert or extroversion. But the concept of introversion and extroversion is one aspect of personality, okay? And it tends to be misconstrued as I noticed in that last conversation, but I often find when I'm working with young adults, I end up in this discussion of introversion and extroversion, which really wasn't related to career exploration, but we end up there anyway, because there's such a misconception about how we can only succeed as extroverts and we have to be more extroverted and society values that. And if you're running a business and marketing, you have to be more extroverted because that's how you get sales and blah, blah, blah. And that's not the case. It's another aspect of personality that says when you know who you are, you embrace that uniqueness around it. Okay, so the pure description of introversion and extroversion, and it is a scale, it goes from one extreme to the other. So you can be a sort of an introvert or very much an introvert, and the same on extroversion. But it's a reflection of where you get your energy from. That's the main description of it. So tends to be that introverts, and I'm an introvert, we get our energy from being on our own. We recharge from having time on our own. Now, that doesn't mean that I want to be on my own all the time and having to talk to people is something I never want to do. It's not that case. There are some really extreme introverts that are very comfortable not having much interaction.
Yeah.
But generally, we just need some alone time to recharge and reflect and get ready for work. Extroverts on their other scale, the other end, they get their energy from being around their people. They might have a group of people that they inspire them, get to recharge. It doesn't mean that they would need to be around everybody or all day, and it can be any old group of people. So the opposite of the introvert. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It
Yes.
does. Because when I was doing that quiz, I kind of really sat with that question, because there was one specifically around about your energy. And for me, I feel like it may have changed in the last year or so. So that was another question I wanted to ask you, is can it actually change? But kind of to my point around where my energy comes from, I feel like I really do get a lot of energy from being around people and groups and going live on Facebook and that kind of thing. But then I also find I'm very comfortable with being by myself, and I need a lot of that time to recharge as well. So I guess that's why I'm in the middle.
Absolutely, yes, that's right. And you can think about it in this term and say, if you spent your day around people all day of your, your 8 hours at work, if it was all day with people all the time, you'd probably say, oh gosh, that would be a bit draining.
Yeah.
But the opposite would be, say, if
That's
you
right.
just spent the whole time at home reflecting and researching and thinking, you'd probably get a bit bored with that as well.
Yeah.
So so it's recognizing your difference around that. So it is purely around energy. There is a little bit of a link to social confidence, but it's a very indirect link. So the people often say, oh, you're such an extroverted personality because you're out there and talking in public and things like that. It's not necessarily the case. You can be introvert like I am, but I'm confident in public.
Yeah.
You can be an extrovert, but you feel underconfident or tend to stand back when you're in public unless you're with your people. So there are two different things. Where you get your energy from is your extroversion versus introversion. How you come across in public is your level of social confidence.
Okay.
Two
Yeah.
different things. Yes,
Yeah.
so separate the two out, and it's really important to avoid labeling. If someone says they're an introvert, it's easy for people to say, "Oh, well, they're cold, antisocial. They'll never want to talk to me. I invite them, they will say no." That's an easy label to put on, but it's not the case. And same with extroverts. You can say, "Oh, an extrovert. Oh, okay. Well, they won't listen to me, and they'll just want to be the center of attention all the time." It's easy to put those labels on people, but that's not the case. They're elements of our personality. They're not everything. Okay. And the other thing you can think about in terms of extroversion versus introversion is your level of stimulation that you need. Extroverts tend to be comfortable with a lot of stimulation. They can work in noisy offices. They can have lots of people around them and still have a conversation. Whereas an introvert, we can get overstimulated by too much going on. So if we're working, we tend to like a quiet space. We don't do well in open plan offices, those kind of things. So it's talking about your level of stimulation is important as well. So you might find that, I find if I'm in a space that's really busy and lots going on, lots of conversations, that can really tire me, really wear me out. Whereas extroverts might not find that. It's also, there's a link with introversion, extroversion about your level of deliberation around a decision or a next step moving forward. So introverts, we tend to prefer to reflect on things. If you say, oh, let's decide about that. Okay, I just need to think about that for a little bit. I'll come back to you in a couple of hours. Once I've, macinated all the information on my head and sifted all out, and then I'll come back to you. An extrovert might say, you suggested this. I think that's good. Let's go for it. Okay. And an introvert would go, hey, just give me some space to think about that. So there's a difference in terms of the scale of deliberation there that's worth thinking about. And so once you know that about yourself, you can adapt to make it work. And an ambivert, as you are, is somebody who's sort of on that scale tends to be in the middle. And it'd be interesting to see if you did this other test whether that would stay true. But you tend to have a mix of both. Once again, there's no perfect personality. It's not saying, oh, we all need to be more extrovert. So Natalie, who you interviewed last week, she would be the classic example of an extrovert. She's comfortable talking. She can talk. She's got big words. She's got comfortable, expressing herself. She's demonstrative in the way she describes things. Introverts, we don't have that level of extreme of emotions. Something could be, oh, yeah, that's pretty good, or no, I'm not really that interested. Whereas an extrovert might go, oh, that's so amazing. That just, whereas, oh no, that was absolutely terrible. I almost died. It's that extremes, and introverts, we don't have that. We don't tend to go to those extremes, which is okay. It's just recognizing when I work with students who I know as introverts because of the way they behave and their interests. When we're talking about possible careers, they might go, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And the mother's going, wow, that wasn't much of a feedback. And I go, oh no, that's okay. You know, that's cool is pretty good on an introvert scale. So I'm getting some cues there. I'm happy to work with that. Yeah. Whereas, you know, at the same time, they'll all say, no, I won't do that. That doesn't interest me. So, you know, they're pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
So again, it's like the personality we were talking about before, any of those aspects, introversion, extroversion is a scale, and it's about recognizing where you are. And it's one of the most profound things that changed my life when I worked out I was an introvert. Because I think for most of my life, I've been thinking, oh gosh, I need to be more social. I need to be more out there. I need to be more doing this. And I didn't enjoy it. And I thought there was something wrong with me. How do I change this? It's a weakness. I need to develop it. And when I realized that it was a unique aspect of my personality and combination of all the other things I like, it's like, oh gosh, that is so freeing. You know, I don't have to be, you know, consumed with FOMO. I can JOMO, you know, joy of missing out is something I'm like really cool with that.
Yeah, same.
You know, it's, yeah. And, you know, and it's, so I've developed strategies around that to help my business. So for example, you know, I need that time to reflect and recharge. And before I would do things like exercise at the end of the day and have that thinking time, and find that I was so busy during the day that often I'd drop off that exercise and I didn't get the thinking time, or I'd find I was so busy, I just, you know, it wasn't value time. So now I put it at the beginning of the day. I have an hour and a half of walking and thinking and just reflecting on everything that happened the last day or the last week, planning what I'm going to do, social media, thinking about the issues that my young adults are dealing with and how I can help them. It's really creative, freeing time for me. And then I'm ready to go for the rest of the day. So if I got jam-packed with clients for the rest of the day, I'm okay with that because I've had my quiet time. That works really well for me.
I love that. So you like prioritizing your schedule based on your personality.
Absolutely, yes, it works for me. If I don't have it, I'm not effective for my clients. I've recognised that. So I don't start till 11. I get all my thinking time done and my creative time at the beginning of the day. Then I hit the ground and I'm off. So that works really well with me. If you're talking about going live before, and people like Natalie, she does lives all the time, and you're probably reasonably comfortable with it as well. But that kind of thing, you know, I do it, but I don't love it. So how do I strategize around that? So things like on my Facebook page at the moment, I'm doing a midday minute masterclass, which is 1 minute talking about a specific subject around students and their career exploration. So that's good for me because it's only a minute and I don't need a lot of words to describe things. So it keeps me nice and compact. And because it's only a minute, I can record it ahead. And if I don't like it, I can delete it, do it again.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
yeah.
I always say to people, if you're not comfortable with live, just pre-record your videos for a little bit and get comfortable. Like there is ways that you can market your business regardless of what personality type. And I think there's a misconception out there, you've already kind of touched on this, that extroverts are better marketers because it's easier to go live. Perhaps I still feel like with extroverts there'd still be a learning curve there and getting comfortable in front of a camera regardless of who you are.
Yes.
Maybe some extremely extroverted people don't care about that, but
No.
you know, like I think that there's actually advantages to all personality types, because you're going to attract people who like you and can relate to you.
Yes.
So if you're an introvert, you might find that you attract lots of introverted clients and that kind of thing. Do you find that's the case?
Not necessarily. I think it works really well for me in that as a coach, I don't need to be speaking a lot. Introverts tend to be better listeners. We like to observe. I love that process. You know, so I'm working with a young adult, I'm picking up on their body language. If they're leaning into something I'm saying, if they're starting to sit up straighter in their seat when I talk about something that's interesting to them, that tells me a lot. So I'm picking up all those cues that perhaps wouldn't work for somebody maybe who's an extrovert who does a lot of the talking or telling. So I've made it work for me. It's that observing, working through that. And really it's, if you're not marketing in line with your personality, just like if you're not working in a business that aligns with your personality, then people pick up on the fact that you're not authentic. you're
Yeah.
trying to be somebody you're not. I'm trying to be this big personality extrovert, and and I know myself I'm not. It'll come across. You might pretend it doesn't, but it does. And there's lots of things that you can do in terms of your marketing. I've discovered that works for you. So that live thing versus the recording works for me. There's things like do you when you're thinking about posting on Facebook and Instagram, for me, I'm all about the science and helping and informing people, but I know that I've got to bring some personality through, but I don't want to post about myself, and I don't like talking about myself. So that's where Instagram stories and Facebook stories are good. I just pop up a quick photo or a short video. It's only up there for a short time. It doesn't have to be too manicured or perfect. And if people are interested in my personal side of things, they just stay with my posts. So I find that works really well for me, and I'm not oversharing about myself, because that's I'm not comfortable with that.
Do you feel like, imposter syndrome, where you feel like you have those feelings of, oh my God, I'm not qualified enough, who's going to listen to me, all that kind of stuff. Do you think there's either personality that's more likely to feel that, or is that something that extroverts don't really experience as much?
It tends to be something introverts are more likely to experience, because we're more in our heads a lot. We spend a lot of time in our heads, and it's often, I say to other introverts, just because an idea pops in your head doesn't mean it's valid, or doesn't mean it's worth, spending the next 3 hours macinating the whole detail and going into some dark rabbit hole about it. If it's not a positive thought, just let it pass and move on to something else. But we do get in our heads a lot and we overthink things, and that's been a danger. And I've certainly had to correct that, because because as an introvert, you can say, I'm going to do this, and then you commit to it, and then you start thinking, oh my God, why did I do that? Who's going to listen to me? Why am I going out there? What's the way? It's a waste of time. And so you overthink it to the stage where you go, oh, actually, I'm sick, I can't go. And that's just ridiculous. So it is that overthinking thing. I think most people in business, and most women do experience of that. And that's a trait that women have more strongly over men. And I say, when I'm in career exploration or helping young adults get a job, I say, when you look at a job ad, a woman's going to look at an ad and say, can I do every single thing on that job ad and do it really, really well before I even think about applying? A man will look at it typically and go, I can do 50% of it, I'll be freaking amazing, so I'm off, and they'll get the job. They'll talk themselves up in it. And so we do ourselves a disservice with this overthinking and being this really cautious side. It's an 80-20 rule. If you can do 80% of the job well and excites you, then apply, go for it. What do you got to lose? Say is no. But we turn this into a whole, the world is ending because we can't do everything about the job. So over imposter syndrome is common, but if we try and avoid, if we recognise that that's a place we can go to, again, we adapt it. And what I do is say, that's a passing thought. I don't need to go there. It's not positive. I'm going to stick with stuff that does benefit me. And so that's certainly positive. Yeah.
That kind of brings me back to my question that I wanted to touch on, is, can your personality change? Because I feel like I was definitely an overthinker and overanalyzer for a very long time. And then I realized how ineffective it was. And I've actually chosen to move through that now. And maybe I feel like maybe I've been pushed up that scale a little bit further towards the middle because of little things like that, where I've actually made decisions like that doesn't actually serve me or work for me.
Yes, your preferences don't tend to change. It's like your interests and your personality. They don't tend to change. By the age of 16, they're formed. And that's why I work with young adults, because by age 16, we can say, these are your interests, and it's not likely to change next year or the year after, in 10 years' time. So we work with that. The same as your personality. But because you've got to know yourself better, your self-awareness has increased because of what you've been doing and your maturity, and you're just going to situations where you learn about yourself. You've learned strategies to overcome it and ways to adapt. So your underlying personality hasn't changed, but you've learned to adapt to it. And so that's great, because self-awareness is the key to success. We can all think that in business it's all about being the best at your job, or the best at marketing, or the best at that. But it's the person who knows himself the best, has the best level of success in work or in business. And I tell that to students. So focused on having the best academic scores, because you can have great academic scores, but if you don't know who you are, who wants to work with you? they won't get to see how bright you are. So focus on your self-awareness, and it's the same in business. I think about where I started in my business, and knowing that personality and behaviour was really important to me. I thought I knew myself quite well back then, but I've learned so much about myself over this time. And it's really about not kicking yourself for the things you aren't, but focusing on the things you are. That's where the joy is, in saying, this is who I am. How can I leverage it? This is my point of difference. For me, the introvert, the observer, the researcher, I'm a nerd about personal behaviour and human behaviour and about careers. How does that all come together to make a business that works for me? And the other people can say they're coaches for young adults, but they won't be doing a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. So that's where, if I embrace that uniqueness and who I am, that's where I can market myself and say, this is what I can deliver. And it's the same for anybody else in business. You've got to say, what is it, my point of difference? How can my unique set of personalities, preferences, all combine to make me unique in terms of how I market my business, how I sell my product?
I love that. And I especially love that you're introducing people to this at such a young age, because you're right, self-awareness is so important. And if you get taught that at a kind of teenager level, it's so much better than kind of having to, I feel like in my generation, you just got to figure it out as life goes on,
Absolutely, yeah. And the classic is the introvert extrovert school. Schools value the extroverts. They value the head, the captain of the first 15. They value the debater, the prefect, the head of school who stands up and speaks. They don't value the introvert who doesn't speak much in class but is thinking about ideas, working through all that information and coming up with some really good solutions. But they're not wanting to stand up in front of class and tell them, I've got 2 boys, and one's an introvert, one's an extrovert. And for the introvert, I'd be a very rich woman if I had $1 for every time a teacher said he needs to speak up more. And I'd say to them, but why? Why does he need to speak up more? And it turns out it was just to make the teacher happy. But if they've really valued what introverts were, they'd recognize that that's not his style. And they'd maybe at the end of the class, they'd go in one-on-one with them, or they'd check in just walking past. They'd have other styles that adapt so that introvert doesn't think, oh, there's something wrong with me because I'm not speaking up in class. And that's a whole mental health thing that they're just generating, which is really negative in my opinion. And that's why I end up in these discussions with these parents who say, oh, he needs to be more like me, he needs to be more outgoing. And I said, no, he doesn't. No, you need to recognize who he is, embrace that uniqueness, because that's where the joy is.
Yeah, totally. And I think that there's nothing wrong with any personality at all. In fact, do you think, what are the advantages of being an introvert? I was thinking about this, and actually after I did the personality test, I noticed there was a few paragraphs about like leadership and that kind of thing, which I thought was really interesting. And it was saying that there's a place in teams for both, and in fact the best teams do have a combination of both. The extrovert has some advantages in leadership, whereas the introvert has other advantages in leadership. So just because you're an introvert doesn't mean that you cannot be a leader.
Absolutely, yeah. There's 2 different styles. Is that there's a spectrum of leadership style as well, like there is introversion, extroversion. But one end of the scale, there's leading by example, which is saying that, okay, if I'm really good at my job and professional, people will follow me because of that. And through to the other end of the scale, which is leadership by direction, which is the kind of person that wants to stand up in front of a team and say, righto guys, this is what we're going to do. I've got the solution. You've got to follow me. Get on with it. And so there's a scale around that, and recognizing that introverts are more likely to be leaders by example. They don't need to stand up in front of people and tell them what to do. Extroverts are more drawn towards the leadership by direction, by some sort of authority, and that's fine. And if you recognize you're one or the other, then you can adapt. So if those, an introvert might prefer to lead by example, but one day their boss might say to them, hey, look, Tracey, so-and-so's away. I need you to direct this team. You go, okay, fine. I know I've got the expertise to do it. It's not my happy place, but I've got the skills. And if I know I just have to adapt for the situation, then I can get on with it. So yeah, it does your personality preference and your introversion, extroversion affects so many things. It's your team style as well. So introverts are not likely to go into a new team and start saying, righto guys, I'm going to talk about myself and tell you what we should be doing. They're more likely, my style would be I'd go in and just observe, see where the personalities are, see who does which sort of tasks, see who's a bit anxious about it, who's not clear, bring a bit of humour to bring the group together. That's my style, and I observe, and then I
Same,
sort of
yeah.
see where I fit in. Whereas
Yeah.
an extrovert might jump in and say, right, guys, we need to get organised. So, okay, who's going to do this? And you're going to do that job, and off you go. So,
Yeah.
and there's a balance for both, but it's recognising where you can fit in, not trying to be somebody you're not again.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's I mean, you're kind of, I mean, this is your area of picking your actual job based on your personality. And I think you could be really good at being a consultant, like one-on-one, doing services, like from a marketing point of view. That could be like your sweet spot. Or if you are more of an extrovert, then maybe you could run online courses where you have to do quite a lot of marketing. So even within marketing, there's different areas that you can go into. Just got a few questions coming through that we can answer, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. So Christine has asked, can an introvert run an online business that requires Facebook Messenger and Instagram interaction?
Yes, they can. Yes, if you choose to do it that way, or you might find there's another way that you want to do it. So really, it is recognizing that it might not be your comfort zone, and how many hours of the day do you need to be online doing that, interacting with people. If it's only a couple of hours, you can say, okay, that's fine, I can do a couple of hours, and then I've got some reflecting time. For example, similar to my business, I'm face-to-face with students and adults, and I take a maximum of 3 clients a day. If I worked back-to-back from 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. with clients, I couldn't do it. That would be draining. But if I've got that time in the middle where I can reflect and recharge, then I'm happy to be that face-to-face person in between. And if I want to expand my business, I know I've got to take on more people because I can't do more clients in the day. Otherwise, it's draining to me. So Christine should think about how much of her day is spent dealing on Instagram and Messenger. Can she handle it? Does she build in some reflection time, some quiet time, make it work for her?
Yeah. I think that's really good. And that kind of comes back to scheduling your day around your personality and knowing how much you can handle, like you mentioned before.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Sue said, when I run events, I get energized by the people who are there for that time frame. But when working regularly, I get energized by spending time alone. So I think she set up higher that she's an ambivert.
Yes, so similar to you, Louise. Yeah, you don't want to be all day, every day working with people, but you also don't want to be all day, every day on your own. It's about trying to structure the day so you've got a bit of a mix, making it work for you. And recognizing that certainly for introverts, and it does work a little bit more as well for extroverts, but certainly for introverts, we tend to be more empathetic. And for me, I'm on high on the empathy scale. So if you're not working with people who inspire or energize you, it can be really draining. So recognizing that. So I'm very careful about picking who I spend my time with. If they don't make me feel good afterwards, then it's not my people. And that's not their fault. It's just the way the energy is. So, an example, a recent one is I went to the supermarket a couple of days ago, just before the lockdown, and people had this look of fear and anxiety on their faces. And the whole thing just made me, I got it back in my car and I cried because it just was it had such an impact on me. And it's just like, okay, I need to be really careful about when I go to the supermarket now, because, I don't need to be dragged into that. It doesn't energize me. So it's about picking your people, online groups, face-to-face groups. Introverts, we say, if I choose to spend time with you, you matter to me. I've decided you matter, and it doesn't mean that extroverts don't pick people who matter to them, but they can manage a group where maybe they don't know people, or maybe it doesn't do a lot for them. They can walk away from it at the end and just go, oh, well, that was fine. But for us, we would just be so drained. We're like, oh God, that was 3 hours we'll never get back.
Yeah, I used to live in the States for about 4 years when I was in my 20s, and I just found there that the extrovert version was so much more common than in like New Zealand and even Australia. And people would like hop on the bus and they'd be just talking to the whole bus. They'd never met them before, and they're just rambling on and on and on, and they just wanted a crowd.
Yes, yeah.
I just found that I actually found it really funny.
Yeah. I mean, extroverts might enjoy it. I'd find it really weird. So yeah,
It was weird, definitely. It was
yeah,
weird.
there's definitely a cultural interest difference there, and I think Americans are trained, brought up to that social presence is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually found that when I lived there, I had to adapt because I was too quiet.
Mm, mm,
Um,
interesting. Yeah, yeah, but would have been draining to do that.
yeah, that's kind of why I feel like I'm in the middle though, because there's been quite a few examples where I have had to adapt and I've been okay, but I still need that downtime.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like couldn't go all day every day around people
Yeah,
at all.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. As long as you recognise it, that's really good. And I think that's when the more you know about personality and about introversion and extroversion, you can think about how that applies to your clients as well. So if you're selling something, you might find that I have a conversation with a client online or on the phone, and they're really excited by my product or service, and they'll say, "Oh, I need to go away and think about it." It's easy to say, "Oh gosh, they're just fobbing me off," but the other cues might be telling you that they're probably an introvert and they just need to reflect on it a little bit. So you chase
Yeah,
them in a couple of days, and so you recognise that your clients are different personalities, different from you. They won't think the same. When you know that, then you don't get so hit up on why don't they think like me? Why didn't they do this? I would have done this. No, we're all different. And that's okay, and embrace that. So it's really thinking about how your different clients come through in terms of their personality and how you adapt to that or embrace it, welcome it.
yeah,
Don't think that we're all going to think the same in terms of marketing.
yeah. Is there a link between are either introverts or extroverts? And I kind of think that it might be introverts that are more likely to be like this. Are they more people that are better at planning?
Absolutely, yeah. It's
Yeah,
that deliberation I talked about before. We deliberate about things, and so whereas extroverts are more likely to jump into something, with a certain amount of information. They're more likely to pull the trigger and say, "Yes, I'll do that." We'll think about it, and so planning also helps us for those scary situations. So, for example, going live with you here this morning, it's not my happy place, but I'm passionate about my subject, and I keep telling myself that, and I did some planning. I thought about the kind of questions you might ask, and that planning gives me the comfort to know that I can go on live and know my stuff. But if I just jumped on there straight away and you start talking about it, I'd be like, whoa, that's when I feel like I would have nothing to offer.
yeah,
So we do plan to overcome those uncertain situations which could be risky to us. Yeah.
yeah. So, what would you say to an introvert who is very good at planning but not so good at the action? Because, from a marketing point of view, it is a very, you've got to take the action. You can plan all you like, but if you don't take the action consistently, then it's going to be quite hard to move forward and get that momentum. So, what's your
Absolutely.
advice there?
So my advice would be to say, okay, let's game play it out. Using planning skills to say, okay, if I'm planning this and I implement it, what could happen? Plan A this could happen. Plan B, this could happen. Plan C. And if you look down all the possibilities in terms of what could happen, what's the worst that could happen? The worst could happen is my client might say no. Okay, can you live with that? You
Mm,
probably can. And so once you know what the possible consequences are, it's more likely to say, well, I've got, if whatever the negative, the worst thing that can happen, I can live with that. I have that a lot with introverts who are job hunting, young, graduates, and they won't go and apply. And I say, okay, let's work this through. If you apply for a job and they don't want you, what's the worst that can happen? They say, well, I might not hear back. And I say, okay, so can you live with that? Yeah, will you survive? Yes, you will. Yeah, if they came back and said, look, thanks, we've got lots of other great candidates, you didn't quite meet the mark. Can you survive that? Yes, you probably can. So once you game play out the possibilities, you realize it's actually not a bad thing. But it's the most negative thing is if you don't take any action, then you've got no results to work on, nothing to build on, no
yeah,
feedback, nothing to say, okay, that didn't work this time. This is what I could do, but it's
yeah,
given me some information. So it's really about taking them through that. I say, let's play this out. Let's game play it. Where does it take us? And think about the consequences. And that's where they're more likely to say, okay, so there's nothing really to lose in terms of taking some action. So let's give it a go.
yeah. And I think considering what's happening in the world right this very minute, it's like a perspective shift in terms of what's really going to be the worst case situation. I mean, we're kind of there right now, and all of the stuff that we think matters actually doesn't.
I agree. Yes, yeah, it sort of helps you to sort of synthesize it down to the key things, what's important. And so, well, some of that superfluous stuff just drops away. You know, well, what if they turn their nose up on me? Well, so what?
Yeah,
you know,
what if people don't like you? Does it really matter?
Yeah, exactly. Not everybody wants to work with you, and if they don't, that's their loss. You know, and if I say to a graduate, if an employer doesn't want you, then that's their loss. Let's go and, you know, kiss another frog. You know, you'll find that person that wants to work with you. You know, got a unique set of skills and attributes and experience. We just got to keep kissing those frogs till we find the person that wants to work with you, who recognizes your value. And it's the same with a client, isn't it? You might sell online or sell by phone or by Instagram or Messenger to lots of people, but you just got to find the person who recognizes your value. And it won't be everybody, and that's okay. You can survive that.
I love what Seth Godin says. Do you know who he is?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought you would. He is, you know, he says that choose yourself. I love that, because I applied for so many jobs when I was younger that I got denied from, and it was so demoralizing. But then at some point you've just got to go, right, you know what, I choose myself and make the business that you want, rather than waiting for someone to choose you, you know, like you can't control that.
No, you can't. No, and it's a very empty situation to be, but it's all about that. Once you know yourself, you say, actually, I do have some really great skills to offer. I'm a unique person. Nobody else will be like me. How can I leverage that? How do I embrace that? How do I choose me in my business and move forward on that? And it really is, you know, focusing on those things are really positive, you know, and I see it a lot with people talking about, you know, instead of choosing yourself, they say, well, follow your passion. And that's a really empty proposition, because the passion doesn't take into consideration lots of other things. Like, it doesn't consider it whether there's a need for that passion. It doesn't tell us whether there's a market for it, and that someone will pay for it. It doesn't actually identify whether you're actually good at it. You can be passionate about something, but you can't turn it into a business unless you've got all those other things. So, and it's the same with careers. You know, parents will say, "I just want him to follow his passion." I said, "Well, but who will pay for that passion?" You know, "Oh, I don't think anybody will." But you know, there's got to be more to it than just following your passion, isn't it?
And there's something to be said, I think, for actually having passions outside of your career. You don't have to turn every single passion into your job.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a discussion I often have, is that we have lots of interests. Some of them are strong enough to be a career, and others are just something you have in the sideline. You know, just because you're into sport doesn't mean you have to be the All Blacks coach. You can just have a job and keep your fitness up, you know, those kind of things. And it's recognizing that it's so important to, you know, not get hung up on stuff that really, is there a business in that? And lots of people I speak to say, well, something's missing, my business is just not working. If I go through those 4 areas around the follow your passion, they go, oh, actually, I realize that there probably isn't a market for that. I just love doing it. But, you know, and so that's a good way for them to say, should I really be continuing this on as a business, or changing, pivoting, doing something else, doing something I'm actually good at?
Yeah, from my experience, I feel like you can start with passion, but then that passion can actually go as well. Like that kind of thing, when you do turn it into your job, you can risk losing that passion. And that's where I think having a bigger mission and a why behind everything is more important. I used to not believe in that either.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, if you boil it down, you know, and this is, I'm not a spiritual person, but if you boil it down to why we're all here on earth, you know, we're all trying to make connections with people, aren't we? Connecting with family and friends and people. And whether you're selling a product or a service or a tool, we're all using that avenue to connect with people. And so you want to spend your time connecting with people in a way that's fulfilling to you. And that's where choosing the right business, choosing the right career is so important, because it increases the power and the richness of those connections you're making with people, because that's basically why we're here on earth, isn't it? You know, I love what I do, but I love the connections I make with my clients and their parents because of it. You know, and you're selling a product. Yeah, exactly. And someone's selling baby clothes, where they love what it does for a family, because, you know, they feel good about their family. It's all that connection that they have. And so let's spend our time making connections in a worthwhile way that fits our personality, fits our preferences, brings us joy. It helps us embrace who we are. Choosing ourselves. That's what it's all important for.
Yeah, definitely.
Back to that.
I've had quite a few comments here. Daya, I hope I say your name right. She says, I move into being an extrovert more so of recently, and mostly at personal socializing than work, especially if I have a struggle at work that week. I tend to evaluate myself, and as I am on a startup in a new place, being new to all personal context too, that puts me in a slow pace and judging myself and others more than I have done before. How do I handle this? So that definitely sounds like quite on the introvert scale.
It might do, yes, exactly. And it's about pushing away the shoulds. So many times in business, aren't we told what we should be doing? You should be going live. You should be on Instagram. You should be on LinkedIn. You should be, and it's okay. Let's just identify what works for me. Okay, and rather than listening to other people telling what they should be doing, she should identify what's going to work for her and her business. That keeps her that aligns with her personality and her interests. And it's okay if it means I can only work part of the day because I need some time to reflect and energize, or like me, when I have my exercise and my quiet time in the morning, that works for me. Was there something else that she can be doing to realign her business or adjust her daily schedule that allows her to be her and bring the best side to her business?
She said in another comment, but otherwise I'm an ambivert. I'd be interested to hear if you've done the quiz, Daya, and what you scored on that. She says she loves talking to people as well. So introverts can still love communication. I think what you said at this beginning is right. Like, my son was watching a YouTube channel and he was talking about introverts and extroverts, and he was like, he had them all lined up in a row. You know how teenagers love that, like the skip scenario. And it was some game, I can't remember exactly what it was about, but it was like spot the introvert or spot the extrovert in a group of introverts or something. It was kind of funny. But he said something that I said to my son, that's totally wrong. Like he said, introverts can't talk. Like, it's so not true.
No, it's not true. No, it's introverts tend to be less expansive with their words, and we can get across our meaning quite quickly. So we don't need to have a lot of words around it. That's fine. We tend to be quite compact. Introverts tend to only speak when they think they've got something worthwhile to say. So in a group setting, they might sit back and people say, why didn't you say anything? And basically they weren't comfortable. So, you need to, if you're in a group with introverts, you need to warm them up, make them comfortable about speaking. But we will only speak when we feel like we've got something to offer. Whereas extroverts are more inclined, if they've got a thought in a group, they'll just pop it out. And so there's a negative to that as well, because you just get these people dominating the conversation with stuff that probably is irrelevant. There's positives and negatives to all. And it really is not putting people in boxes. Not all introverts are cold and aloof and antisocial and don't like to talk to people.
Yeah.
Not all extroverts want to be the center of attention and talk about themselves all the time. There's, we have moments of that in our day, but it's not all day. So it's important not to put people in boxes and label them because of that. The shy label comes across a lot when I hear parents talking about their children and they say shy, and I say it's really dangerous to put that label out there, because if they start telling everybody else that they're shy because their parents have said they are, they go into a job interview, into a workplace, and they get the label of shy and go, oh, don't talk to him, he's shy. What they mean is he's just an introvert. He'll only speak when he's got something worthy to say, but when he's got something worthy to say, it is good to listen to, but you end up with this label of yourself and you take it through your life, and it's very negative and it impacts your mental health. And those people that I've talked to who are shy, they said, no, I just worked out I was an introvert, and that's okay. But
it's funny you bring up the shy word, because I was just about to ask that question. So is it only introverts who would be shy, or could you be a shy extrovert?
You could be, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because remember, it's about where you get your energy from versus your social presence. Okay, so
So
it
that's the
doesn't
social confidence that you're talking about.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So just because you're extrovert doesn't mean that you go in any situation and you wouldn't be scared. Of course, there'd be some situations where you could be feeling really shy or underconfident or anxious. And the same with introverts. If I'm speaking about my subject, I'm confident. But if you pop me into a group where I had to talk about spaceships or something, I'd be like, well, I've got nothing to offer. That freaks me out totally. But my passion is what gets me through talking live or talking public speaking. So yeah, the shyness label can be really dangerous for people.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a label or
Mm.
like a mask, you know. People
Yes.
can kind of hide behind it a little bit.
Mm.
So
Mm.
Daya says that she did do the quiz and she got an ambivert. So
Okay.
that could be maybe around the social confidence side of thing, then what she's
Could be,
struggling with.
yes, yeah, or just how she structures her day like you know, if she's talking to people too much during the day, she might find that she's drained and then she's not having enough time to reflect, and vice versa. She might find that if she's having too much time on her own where she's in her head or thinking about things and needing some social contact, that can be boring to people as well. So it's really getting that mix in your day, and like I said, I structure my day so my clients aren't too close together, got my quiet time at the front of the day, have some quiet time at the end, make sure I'm not dealing with people all day, every day, because it would just drain me. And I use my time really carefully, decide who I want to spend time with. You know, I say if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no, you know, and things like that. So I've learned strategies to help me prioritize, avoiding what people say I should be doing, getting out of my head. But it's always about building my self-awareness. What did I learn from that situation that helps inform me about who I am and how I could use that knowledge to leverage my business, to be better at my job, to better serve my students and their parents. It's all about that. And that should be what we all focus on, regardless of what your personality preferences are, or whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's all about getting to know yourself so that you can build those connections with people in a better, more fundamentally authentic way.
I totally agree. Linda's left a comment here saying, Tracey, I think you can sort out not only teenagers but adults who never had your expertise and are still trying to sort themselves out. I totally agree with that.
Yes, yeah. Perhaps there's an avenue for personality profiling of business owners, so that once they know who they are, they can go, oh, I don't need to be somebody else. I can be myself. And
yeah,
I'd love that.
Yeah, I think it's very much needed, this kind of knowledge. Ruth says, I'm 100% an introvert, energized by being at the markets because I'm passionate about our products and services. After the markets, I'm energized by spending time by myself.
Yep, brilliant. Yeah, that's a brilliant description. Well done. Yeah, that's really good. And yep, us introverts unite, but only in small groups, please.
Yeah, and Sue says the same. When I run events, I get energized by the people. I think I might have read this one already, who are there for that time frame. But when working regularly, I get energized by spending time alone. I think I did read that before. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So, it's just, there's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's recognizing what works for you and adjusting your day or aligning your business with that. It's a totally personal approach, but it's that knowledge of yourself and that self-awareness that is the first step to saying, okay, how do I make the most of that? That's where the joy is, because it'll set you apart from somebody else who might be selling the same product, but you're doing it a different way. You're doing it that aligns with you. You're more authentic.
Yeah, and you've got to be yourself. Like you can't, like there's a truth that you have, and then if you try and be something outside of that, it's just not possible to pull it off. It might be for a short time period, but not for long.
No. Exactly, it's emotionally draining. It's not worth it, and you know in yourself that it's not you, so you can't sustain it. My motto in my business is that when you align what you do with who you are, you become what you need.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so when I worked out who I was and I aligned my business with that, I solved all the needs that I had.
Yeah,
and that works for me, and it should be the same for everybody else. So yeah.
I love that. On that note, I think I could talk about this all day, but we'll finish up here. I don't think we've got any more questions. But if you are watching the replay and you want to drop a question in, definitely go ahead. I'm sure me or Tracey could, look at it later on.
Happy to answer you. And I might put that link up for the more detailed introvert extrovert quiz that people can have a go at and see if it changes. It ambiverts, if it moves you either side. Be interested to see. But it's another great quiz, and there's some resources there if you want more help around getting to know yourself as an introvert or an extrovert. I can pop some resources in the links. So
yeah, that would be great. That would be really good. So where can people find out more about you and go and hunt you down if they're interested?
So my website is careermatters.co.nz, and I've got a Facebook page, Career Matters NZ, and I'm on Instagram, Tracy_Career Coach NZ. And so yeah, happy to, if you've got any questions around, personality, or you think you need some support around young adults, happy to talk about that. Always happy to talk about careers, geek out about personal behaviour, human behaviour. Yeah, happy to answer any questions around that. So free 20-minute phone call I provide any client who wants to know whether that I can help their young adult particularly.
Yeah, cool. Got some comments coming through thanking you, saying that you've opened up their eyes. So that's really nice.
Great. That's good. Yeah. So hoping build some self-awareness there. So yep. When we know ourselves better, we do better, don't we?
Great. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for giving us your time today. And yeah, it was so interesting.
Thank you, Louise. Yeah, and thanks for the time. And yeah, great to chat to you about all these aspects of personality. So yeah, we'll learn something.
Definitely. Cool. Thank you. See you later.
Okay, bye. Bye, everybody.